Hello, you're here to debate.
Yes, sir.
All right. What's your name, age, and pronouns?
My name is Kenny. I'm 29 and he, him, I guess.
Okay, Kenny, what topic on the board did you disagree with?
I'm gonna go with trans men are women or trans men women are women men women. That was terrible.
That's all right. You got there in the end, I think. Yeah, I would argue that trans men are men and trans women are women. I'm assuming you would disagree.
Yeah. I mean, to start off, is it okay if I ask you why you believe that trans men are real men and trans women are real women?
Yeah, because I believe men and women are social terms that just dictate certain categories that we place upon the sexes, and I think that they would meet those category alignments. Specifically, there is no necessary condition that like bars them from the category. So, because there's no necessary condition barring them from the category, I have no problem allowing them into the category, especially because I believe gender identity to be an internal sense of self. So.
Okay, so how would you define a man and a woman?
I would define them as, and it would just be interchangeable based on like specific, the specifics on the definition, but it would just be an adult human whose gender identity aligns with their personal schema on the male or female sex.
Uh, okay, my bad. You said an adult that aligns with the
And a
male or female sex.
Yep, an adult human whose gender identity aligns specifically with their schema on the male or female sex.
Okay, you said the word schema.
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize 'cause I'm not sure what schema means. Can you explain what schema means to me?
Schemas are just it's a psychological term that just refers to the way our brains inherently categorize information. So our brains just naturally take in and use schemas, and schemas are basically how we can look at something and identify it as something else. We use internal schemas. Um, so that's just
Okay,
that's what schemas are.
so schema is basically we see something and we categorize it as something based off of the way that we see it.
Essentially, yeah.
Does that explain that just about? Okay, so going off of schema, do you think that we can see something and categorize it as something, but what we categorize it as is false and untrue, or is anything the way that we perceive anything just what it is?
It would depend on the thing. I don't believe we can claim like a social construct. We can make like false or untrue statements about that because social constructs by their nature are not like objective things, they're subjective things. We can make categorizations on like external objective factors, and those can be objective. But when we're critiquing social constructs, those can't be.
Gotcha. Okay, and so woman is more than just an adult uh, female,
Yes.
an adult human female. It's more than just
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Now, if someone, okay, so that's a social construct. Like your definition is a social construct. And a social construct, in many ways, would you agree that it's based off of a belief system, right? Or like what you choose to believe something is?
I don't know that I would define it as like a belief system because like money is a social construct, and it's like money doesn't stop existing just because I don't believe in money, right? Like I wouldn't describe social constructs are just things that have been created and constructed through human interaction and societal connections, right? I wouldn't necessarily claim that they're beliefs. No.
Uh, so, but they're not objective; they're subjective.
Well, they're subjective because they're not mind dependent, right? I'm sorry, they're not mind independent, so they would have to be subjective because they're mind dependent. So the subject in most cases would be like the societies that we're living in. So a good example of this is like gender categories themselves are subjective, and we know this because there have been societies that have had more than just man and woman as gender categories. For instance, a lot of indigenous tribes had what's known as two spirit, which is its own gender category separate from man or woman. So this would be how we know that gender is a subjective thing. Otherwise, every human society ever would only have man and woman, but we know that they don't.
Okay, so anything that a society has believed to be true means that that category is now falls under the subjective category versus objective category because a group of humans at some point believed it to be true. Is that accurate?
No, no,
No. Okay.
that
Can
wouldn't
you
that
can you
yeah
break down why
y-
that's inaccurate?
yeah sure. Social constructions are, it's not that they're not true. Subjective things can be true, right? It's just that it's not objective. So when we say if somebody were to ask me, does gender exist? I would say yes. Gender is a true thing that exists. It's just subjective. And it's not just about a society believing something to be true, but if it's a social construct in the first place, then it's not this rigid objective thing. So man and women were created as concepts, as categorization principles by people. So therefore, people can change them, right? Just like money was created by
Wait.
people, so therefore, people can value money differently.
So so you're saying that men and women, like those concepts, originally were developed by people, as in
Yes,
they weren't
man and
a
woman
thing that
as
people just
categories.
observed.
Yes, man and woman as
What was that?
categories were man and woman as categories were created by people. Yes.
By people. Okay, so before people categorize them, what would you call? I mean, what was adult human males and adult human females not a thing before humans
Yeah,
collectively
I
categorized
wouldn't.
them as things?
Yeah, if we go back far enough in the human genome, and we get, not genome, in human history, and we get to like early Neanderthals, they didn't have concepts of man and women, right? Because they didn't have the same
And
social
so
structures as
therefore,
we
men
are.
and
They
women
didn't
didn't
even have.
exist.
Well, yes, that concept as a social concept didn't exist. There were no men. There were no
Okay,
women.
so so there.
They
So
didn't
what were
understand
there?
male and female at that point. They just
What was
were
that?
like, they didn't have, there was no sense of self in terms of gender. It didn't exist.
So there were no men and there were no
No,
women
there were
back then.
males and females, but they didn't have a social structure of men and women yet.
Gotcha. Okay, so then the moment that they realized that, I guess, well, okay, well, hold on, because so the moment that they actually put the word to the thing, adult human male, we're gonna call that a man, and then adult human female, we're gonna call that a woman. Is that the moment that the social construct
No,
was
the
developed? That
creation of the category would come before naming the category. So like they would, as they start to develop gender roles and gender expressions and gender traditions inside of a society, that's when those genders begin to take form. Now we operate typically on a Western ideal of gender, which is man and woman. But again, there were societies that operated uh, with more than just those two gender categories. In fact, it
okay? So
Polynesian?
let me ask you a question, and pardon the interruption. Let me ask you a question. So if one society sees men and women in the way that you define it, which is it's just strictly a social construct, and let's just say it is a social construct, but that social construct includes things beyond just adult human male and adult human female, right? It includes things like how you dress, how you act, how you feel, all those things. But then there's another society who views men and women as strictly adult human male and adult human female. Are one of those two things true, or is it just it depends on which social construct you decide to adhere to?
Gender is an internal critique. So, like, what you believe like a woman to be can't be what another person like. It can't dictate what a woman is to somebody else. There are multiple social constructs like this where we use internal critiques to tell us what like a thing is. Woman as a category, man as a category, they would be these type of social critiques. There are other social constructs where it's not about an internal critique, so we don't use internal critiques to do it, but gender is about an internal critique. So like for example, we can have like an understanding of like friend, right, as a concept, but I can't say because I believe a friend has to be X, Y, or Z that that's what you have to believe. You like that's how you make your friends, right? Like it's the same with love. I can't tell you what it means for you to love someone. I can't tell you the strict categorization your brain does, the schema that your brain has created around love. I can't tell you what that is, and I can't make a determination for whether or not you love someone else. I can't watch the way you interact and go, you don't love this person, right? Because love is another one of those internal critiques. Friend is an internal critique. I can say your love might not be healthy based on like psychology stuff, but I can't tell you if you love someone. Gender is sort of the same way. I can say, for me, to be man is just to be male, right? That's all I needed. That's all I need as a cisgender man. It's just I'm male, so I'm a man. But other people are going to have different, and this is where we get into the gender identity and the schema part, right? So for me, my gender identity aligns with my schema on males. That's why it's just like, I am male, therefore I'm man. If your gender identity doesn't align, it would be, well, I'm woman, and me being a woman doesn't align with me being a male, so therefore you're transgender, because these things don't align.
So I guess the part that I'm having like a bit of a contention with is that these are, like you said, these are social constructs. Okay, meaning that it is something that we all, as a conglomerate, on average,
I
would
think
have to
I think
agree
what you're
to.
missing. Wait, I think what you're missing in the way that our brains have evolved, right, and in the way like our brains operate in a society. It's not that gender in and of itself currently, because the way we view gender is just the way your brains connect with things, right? The gender roles and the gender categories are what are socially constructed. So like, man being a gender category is a social construct that we operate of in our society. Gender in itself is just the way our brains connect with that socially constructed role, right? So there's a reason why we say it's an internal critique, because it's about the way your brain connects with internally the created role in society.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the created role in society, because you can have a very feminine man, what some people would call a man.
Yes, that person's gender identity would
like
not
a woman,
disalign
they act
with their...
like a woman. They
Wait.
What was that? Say it again?
Their gender identity wouldn't disalign with their sex. They still, just like, there's a difference between gender expression, right? Like, your gender expression can be vastly
But you
different.
mentioned gender role, though. You mentioned the word gender.
No, when I say gender role, I don't.
So,
okay, so when I'm saying gender role in this sense, I'm not saying as in like it's a role that a gender must inhibit. I'm just meaning the category of man, right? The category of woman, right? These are genders. These are categories of gender that we've created, right? This is why, again, in Polynesian culture, like specifically in Samoan culture, they have multiple genders that you can align with, right? It's not just man and woman. They have, what is it? It's like fa'afafine.
But
I don't remember all the other ones. But like, what I'm telling you is, and what I'm trying to bridge the gap on, is that our brain, we are social creatures in general. Our brains interpret information that comes in from the outside. So when we look at gender, what happens is we grow up taking in information on what males and females are, right? We're taking in this information. And then our brain is using an internal critique to look at the way it views itself in relation to male and female, and whether that connects with what it is taken in societally as male and female. Now, what it takes in can be different for every person. This is why we say gender is an internal critique. It's not something like what it means to be a man for me may be vastly different to what it means to be a man for somebody else. So because of this, I can't use my determinator of what it means to be a man to dictate whether somebody else is a man.
So I don't think I have too much of an issue with and I'm speaking just from a theoretical standpoint or ideological standpoint. I don't think I have too much of an issue with someone internally viewing themselves as whatever they want, right? Like whether they think they're a woman or a man or whatever other genders they might want to identify as. I guess I don't really see an issue with that. The part that I think is important and where this kind of disagreement really takes shape in a very real way that it affects us, aside from just, hey, let's just agree to disagree, is that as humans, we operate based off of things that are objectively true that we can all agree to. On average, for example, you might say that you love someone and I don't think that you love someone, or we have different definitions of love, right? Because that's something that's internal to us. But we all have to be able to agree that the sky is blue, for example.
But there's a difference between like a physical
outside.
natural property and like our like what's going on in our
Well,
brains. So like, sure, yeah, I
well,
agree
well,
that there
well, it is
are
a natural like human genitalia is a natural property. That's something that we
human genitalia has
can't
nothing to wait.
really.
But this is again, you're conflating two things, right? Human genitalia is quite literally just a sexual characteristic. So when you're claiming that that human genitalia must equate to gender, you're doing the exact same thing I am. You're taking something and you're taking an internal critique of what you view sex as, and you're applying it to everybody else and saying, because in my internal critique, genitalia must equal gender, therefore in everybody's genitalia must equal gender. But like genitalia are just
Here's where it
a
actually
secondary
matters, though, because
or a
I
primary
think
sexual characteristic. It's not even a determinant trait.
well, the reason it goes beyond just, again, like from a ideological standpoint, I don't I think, okay, well, I'll just speak for myself. I don't really care what someone else, uh, their internal critique might be of themselves and what they feel like. If you felt like you were a woman, in my mind, I see a man, right? Like I see a beard, I see, male characteristics, and that to me is a man, because the way that I view the world is that a man is quite simply just an adult human male. Then to me, you're a man. But if you want to call yourself something else and believe that you're something else, then that's fine, right? And then we can have a disagreement on that. But where it actually has a real impact in the world is that society is built around the differences between adult human male and adult human female. So I feel like sometimes we get into semantics, right? Like
Yeah,
social constructs
when you say
allows
society
for
is
the
built, when you
changing
say
of definition.
wait,
What
when
was
you
that?
say society is built around the differences between adult human males and adult human females, like this isn't telling me why what I'm saying would be incorrect. It's just you saying, well, society was built this one way. Okay, why does it have to
Oh well,
remain
let me
built
explain.
this way?
Let me explain. I think that where we get into trouble is that I can't tell you you're incorrect based off of the way that you define certain terms, right? And that's why one of the first things I ask is, how do you define these terms? We can have a disagreement on how we define certain terms. For example, for me, an adult human man, I mean, I'm sorry, a man is just an adult human male, right? So in order for you to tell me that a woman can be a man, you have to change the definition of the word man and the definition of the word woman. There could be a bunch of other people who adhere to your definition, just as like there's a bunch of people that adhere to my definition.
Wait,
So when you
but what
use
does this
terms like gender,
matter? Definitions are just descriptive; they're not prescriptive, so none of that matters. You wouldn't have to change a
no, no,
definition. You wouldn't.
it does, because
No,
we're
because you wouldn't have
communicating,
to.
right? So
You
if
wouldn't
I'm
have to.
using a
Wait,
word,
Kenny. Sorry, I was going to call you Seth again. Jesus Christ, Kenny. You don't have to change a definition for a word's meaning to change, because definitions are by nature descriptive. Definitions, all they do is they're going to tell us how collectively people tend to use a word, but they don't imply some level of correctness. They don't apply any prescriptive qualities to words. So
well,
what does it
I
matter?
don't, I don't,
And if
dis-
the issue is you have to change
I
the
don't
definition,
disagree
then
with
we just
that.
change the definition. You don't agree with definitions
No, no,
being descriptive?
no. So I don't think I disagree with what you just said. What I'm saying is that if I am to say that a man is an adult human male, okay, the only way that you would be able to say no, that's incorrect, is by just taking the word man and then adding additional descriptors to it than from the descriptors that I'm using. Okay, so when I say man, all I'm talking about is an adult human male. You're talking about other things because you're including things like gender and gender roles and in everything that you explained. I'm not saying that you're necessary. I'm right now for this moment. I'm not taking the argument or the position that you're wrong to add those definitions to that word. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that now we're having an argument about semantics, because you see man and you have a certain definition of man, and I have a different definition of man. And in human society and social constructs, we are allowed to change the definition of words and the way that we use them. So, and that has happened with a bunch of other words. It could happen with those terms as well. Uh, One big piece of this argument, as a whole, like just this whole transgender argument and trans issue, is that there's often just that we're like talking past each other, because you're saying, I'll say like, no, that's not a man, right? A man can't be a woman can't be a man.
Well, no, we're not.
And
Hold
you
on,
say, no,
really
it
quickly,
can.
really quickly. It's not that we're talking past each other. You're just using an appeal to definitions fallacy. You're saying this a woman or a man must be an adult human male because that's what the definition tells me. It's just a fallacy.
No, it's not a fallacy because that's the way. Forget the dictionary. It's just the way that
it is quite literally.
If I see something and I'm going to use words to describe it, I'm going to use certain words to describe it. And then
why can't you? But my question is, why can't you just expand your definition? Why can't you internally just expand your definition? What would be the reason you can't do that?
Okay, so now we're on the same page. Yes, so that's what you're doing. You're expanding the definition of a word. That's basically my whole point of what we're saying. You're just expanding on that. Like for me,
we do this.
If I see someone
expanding or changing, like I would say, I'm just changing it.
What was that?
Expanding or changing.
What was that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in this particular case, I think that you would be changing it because you are adding things that would be exclusionary to my definition. If you look at the strict definition, I'm not saying to look it up on any dictionary. I'm just saying
nothing I add would be exclusionary for your definition. Your people that meet your definition of woman would still fall under the category of woman in my definition. So mine's not exclusionary.
Yeah, it would be, I guess, disqualifying. Let's put it that way, because if you are to include an adult human female in the definition of man based off of other categories that you might add to it, then now you're disqualifying that word for me, because now you're describing something as man that I would say, no, that's not a man, that's a woman. And that's just semantics. So I'm not discrediting gender roles. The argument
is inherently a semantic argument, because we're arguing if one thing meets
I agree.
The barriers of being a word or not. So yeah, it's obviously a semantic argument. But like I'm just saying, if your argument, and correct me if I'm wrong, if your argument boils down to the dictionary the definition states that it is a woman is an adult human female, therefore a woman must only be an adult human female, that is quite literally a fallacy.
And so explain to me. So my position isn't about the dictionary. It's about the conglomerate of humanity.
That's where you get that definition. You get that definition from the dictionary. That's where you get that definition.
No. So first, I knew what a man and a woman was long before I knew how to read. Right, like I didn't need a dictionary.
Yes, but you get that because people have been telling you that a man and a woman is X because of the dictionary, because that definition.
You're doing the same. But I'm not. No, it's not because of the dictionary.
Yes, it is.
So you said prescriptive and descriptive.
What do you mean it's not because of the dictionary? What do you mean? The phrase adult human female is quite literally derived from a dictionary definition of man and woman. What are you talking about?
No. Okay, so some human wrote the dictionary, and when they were writing the dictionary, the way that they would define words is the way that humanity as a whole in general defines words. So it's not like if we found a holy dictionary, we don't know who wrote it, we're just going to go off of
what I'm saying, you believing, right, that it is X is only because you weren't the first people to come up with the concept. So your belief that it is this thing only comes from the fact that society has been conditioned because the dictionary wrote it one way at one point in time.
No, well, I disagree, because we could say that I could say the same thing to you, right? The way that you're describing men and women is based off of how you're being told to describe it. My point is, it's not about the dictionary.
Told by who?
Right? The dictionary is I'm sorry?
Mine isn't about being told to describe it. Mine is about taking psychological and sociological concepts and coming up with a definition that fits and allows for these things and the way that our brains work.
Right. So that's the exact same description that I could use as to why men and women are defined in the dictionary the way that they are. In some dictionaries, because there are other.
Then Kenny, let me just ask you a question. Let me just ask you a question then. Let me just ask you a question so I have some clarification here. Do you have an issue with expanding your definition of woman or man to include trans men and trans women?
I do.
Why?
Because what it is to be a man and woman in the traditional sense, like I'm gonna categorize or name my definition as the traditional sense, just simply so that we can, keep things organized. In the traditional sense of the word, I believe that it matters because there are certain, for example, laws and rights that are afforded only to women, for example, that wouldn't be afforded to men, and also vice versa. And I think that those things matter.
Wait, so what laws and rights are only afforded to women?
I mean, and I'll expand that to also just norms and stuff like that. But for example, in large part, it will be men who get sent to battlefields. For example, obviously there's
women are allowed
the
in the
sports.
army, so that's not true. Literally, women are in
What
the
was
army. Women are currently in the army, so this is not true. Women are
that?
currently in
No, no,
battalions that fight on the front
they're on the
lines.
army. Like my brother was in the military. He was in IT. He never touched he touched a real gun maybe a couple of times. So just being
so
in the
this isn't a
military doesn't mean
right.
that
So
you're in the
this isn't a
battlefield.
right. You're
What?
saying I'm asking you what right. Okay, let's analyze this for a second. I'm asking you what
Sure.
rights are and laws are specific to women, and you're going, well, they won't be sent to battlefields. Yes, they will, because we allow women to enlist in the army. So even if there is a draft, right, and even if a draft shows up and we say, men, you're getting drafted, women can still voluntarily enlist, and they will and have. They wanted to last time,
Is
and
there
they
a difference
serve.
between voluntarily enlisting and being drafted? Do you see a difference between
Sure,
those two things?
but like we're not going to ever need a draft because our enlistment numbers are so high. So it doesn't even matter. You're not going to get drafted either. The only time we're going to have a draft is if our enlistment numbers.
Well, you brought up the draft, and you
I
correlated
assume
it
that's
to
what
being
you're
the same
talking.
as women
Well,
enlisting.
wait. I assume you were speaking about the draft, because if you weren't, I don't know what you're talking about, because women are literally
Okay, so let's
enlisted
talk
in
about the
combat
draft then.
units
That's actually a law that's in the books right now. When you turn 18, you're supposed to enlist for the selective, something service, which basically means you're signing up for a potential draft. Only men have to do that. Well, in the traditional sense, right? Like adult human male.
Wait, I agree. Yes.
So we could use the draft as an example.
Men are enlisted in the draft. I agree. But what I'm telling you is that isn't gonna, like, the thing that we would have here is we would be saying, well, men are
That is a protection for women, though, specifically.
but it isn't it's not anymore once we allowed women to enlist. It's no longer a protection for women, because they can still just voluntarily
It is, because if
enlist.
a woman doesn't want to go into the military, she doesn't have to. A man wouldn't have that choice. So there's a very clear difference between voluntarily.
But you're saying it's there. But wait. You're making the claim that if there is a draft, women will not have to fight, but they are, like, women are protected from the battlefield, but they're not, because they can still enlist. So there is no protection to actually stop them from actually engaging in combat.
No. Yeah, but you I know that you have to see the difference between involuntarily getting sent to a battlefield against your will and saying, I want to go to a battlefield, so I'm going to enlist. In other words, a woman would have the option to stay at home and just stay stateside and not, be in harm's way in the battlefield. A man would not have that choice.
But wait. But hold on. Let me ask you a question then. Are all men forced?
No. They're forced to join the draft, and then it's basically a lottery system.
Yeah, but hold on. This is what I'm saying. There's a specific age group that you're forced to enter the draft. So that you'll be drafted. So even if there is a draft, there are plenty of men who are not going to be forced. It's only it's honestly, if you want to look at it, it should be more of like an age group specifically that we're discriminating against, not just a sex.
It's both, because a woman of any age will never be sent to a draft, as the way that the laws are written right now. I mean, not sent to a draft.
Again, I'm not disagreeing. But the at least what it felt like the conceit of your argument was that women are not going to be women are going to have this level of protection that keeps them from fighting on the battlefield. But that protection goes away as long as we have women who are voluntarily joining the army, right? It's not that women are protected. Like if we do a draft, okay?
But they are.
Are you? But they're not.
I'm hearing you. I'm listening.
They might be protected protected from involuntary service, but they're not protected from the battlefield. They're just protected from being forced.
Protected. Okay. So they are protected from involuntary service. Do you agree with that? That they are protected.
I've never disagreed with that.
Service.
I've never disagreed with that.
Oh,
as my disagreement is the idea that they're protected from the battlefield.
Okay, so you and I can agree that they are protected from involuntarily going to a battlefield, while men would not be protected from involuntarily going to the battlefield.
Some men.
You agree with that?
Some men.
well, yeah, men of a certain age group and that are able, that aren't disabled and stuff like that. But women, doesn't matter how fit they are, how strong they are, what age they are, it doesn't matter. They would never be susceptible to involuntarily going to a battlefield if they choose not
Sure.
to. Do you
What
agree
is
with
this?
that?
But this doesn't prove that they get some sort of special right, or like in the country. They might have a special
No, no, no.
privilege. They
I'll
might have
I'll
some
keep my
level of
statement
privilege, but
just
they
like
don't.
that.
It's not that they're. But you said
I
there were
won't say
special
anything about
rights.
special
But
treatment. I won't say anything
wait. But
about privilege. I'm just
you specifically said
yeah.
there were special rights afforded to these different groups, and that's why you can't allow trans women to be women because there were special rights. But this isn't a right.
Well, I said I brought in what I said. I said rights, laws, norms, right? Just or privileges, even, right? So just
Sure.
in
Now let's
general, we
wait.
treat
Okay,
these
so then let
two
me ask you a
categories
question. Let me ask you a
differently.
question. Let's say
That was
we
just one
get rid of
example.
the draft. Let's say we get rid of the draft. Now trans women can be women, right?
No, because it's not just about the draft. There's a bunch of other
Okay,
stuff.
what
The
else
draft
is
was just
there?
an example that you
Well,
brought up.
what else is there? So we get rid of the draft.
Well, let's talk
Now
about one
we're
that's a little bit more. I think everyone would be able to understand it. We could probably go deeper into because it's we're all should be pretty knowledgeable on it since we're on this phone call. Sports. Let's talk about sports. There's a difference between, on average, the average female and the average male in terms of their physical ability. And this is the only reason why we have
sports
separate
aren't
sports
sports aren't
is
separated because of laws though. There's no like law separating sports.
no, that's why I said norms and privileges and all these other things. So I don't want to just relegate it only strictly to laws because there's far more things that govern us and the way that society operates outside of just laws, right? So I don't want to just say, well, okay, well that's not a law, so we can't talk about that. In general, right? There are differences in the way that society treats men and women. One of those examples you mentioned, the draft, that is actually a law. So we talked about that one. You agreed that there is a certain uh, uh, there's something that men would have to be susceptible to that women would not, and they have that additional protection. Okay, that is specifically for biological females. Now, when we're talking about sports, it's not a law, although I think there are some laws on the books actually in some states that do describe who can participate in certain categories of sports. But we don't have to talk about the law. In general, the only reason we created a separate category of sports for females is so that females can actually compete. Because on average, you would have maybe like I don't know, like one female per team, probably in the younger ages, and as kids hit puberty and become bigger and stronger and all that stuff, then you probably have like no females. Sports so that females would be able to compete, so that people can go see their daughters play, basketball and soccer and all these things, and it's actually competitive. This is another reason why I contend that these definitions do matter, and why I wouldn't accept the expansion of that definition. Do you agree that male and females have differences in their biology that would make it uncompetitive, if that's even a word, for females to play along with the males in sports?
I wouldn't make an absolute claim like that. I would say it is typical
Just in general,
I would say it is
typical.
typical for men or for males specifically. It is typical for males who go through male puberty and who maintain male hormones to have an advantage over females. And when we account for the trans people who go through HRT, we kind of notice that advantage starts to go away.
When who goes through HRT?
When trans people go through HRT, that
I mean,
advantage
I would
goes
disagree
away.
with that because that's why you have was it Leah Thomas, who just absolutely smoked a whole bunch of
Leah
females.
Thomas did not absolutely smoke anybody. Leah Thomas, like here, let me give you. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over this with you because a lot of people like to bring up Leah Thomas, but they've never actually looked at Leah Thomas's record or how she actually
Sure,
did
sure.
when she competed. So Leah Thomas specifically swam in 3 events: the 500, the 200, and the 100. When Leah Thomas competed in the 500, she came in where's my thing here? Here it is. When she competed in the 500, she came in 8th place or 5th place. Sorry, she came in 5th place. So she didn't smoke a bunch of people because a bunch of women, like cisgender women, beat her. So she came in 5th place when she did the 200
And
yard
you said in
freestyle.
fifth place.
Yeah, I'm sorry. She won the 500. So the 500 she won. She won the 500. Okay. She placed 5th in the 200. So in the 200, she placed 5th. So a bunch of cisgender women beat her, right? And then in the 100-yard freestyle, she came in dead last.
Okay.
So
now, how did she place?
Wait. Hold on.
Olympics?
Wait. No, this is just the NCAA championship. She didn't compete in the Olympics.
Oh, NCAA. My bad.
Hold on. How is someone coming in last place smoking the competition? I would argue that she did the worst out of everyone.
No, I got you. And the way that I would answer that is to compare how Leah Thomas did against the men.
Why would I compare that? No, you actually can't compare that. That's actually completely antithetical to your argument. Your argument was that she's smoking the competition, not that she's doing better than when she was a man. That's not your argument. Your argument is smoking. So if we're going to completely pivot arguments,
okay.
But if the argument is smoking,
I'm not. I hear you.
If the argument is she's smoking the competition, where's the smoke? Because even her 500, her win was 9 seconds behind NCAA's record set by a cisgender woman.
I got you. So,
and if you put all of the past 7, or if you put all of her compared to all the other NCAA winners of the 500-yard freestyle, she would have placed 8th out of 56th. She's still not being smoked. She's still not smoking anyone. Who is she smoking?
If you compared Leah Thomas to the Olympics, then they would have been even further back. So it's a comparison, right? Like when you smoke anything, and the term that I was using it's in comparison. So you have to compare it to something. So yeah, if you compare it to the other women that Leah Thomas was competing with, maybe she barely won one. She lost some others. Maybe even smoking the competition wasn't the proper term. The reason I use that is because when Leah Thomas was competing against the men, Leah Thomas was wholly unremarkable. And when Leah Thomas was competing against the women, she was competing against them to the point where she was actually
when she was competing against the men, she was ranked 89th. When she was competing against the men, she was ranked 89th in the country. She was ranked 89th in the country when she was competing in men. Then when she went to the women's division,
competing with the women,
yeah, she was ranked 31st.
Okay, so by comparing those two things.
But why are we comparing those two things? Those two things have nothing to do with. Wait, no, hold on.
No, those two things.
Kenny, those two things have nothing to do with the fairness of the competition that she's entering against other cisgender women. It has nothing to do with whether the competition is fair. Absolutely nothing. Because if it was the case that she jumped up so amazingly, that she's doing so well, she wouldn't have come in dead last. She wouldn't have placed 5th place.
You're using one category to say that Leah Thomas.
She only did 3 races. She only did 3 races in the NCAA. Those are the only 3 that I can use.
And Leah Thomas got a gold medal on at least one of them, correct?
She placed first of all. She didn't get a gold medal. This isn't the Olympics. She placed first place in one event. In one event.
Okay, but that's one event that Leah Thomas wouldn't have gotten that medal if Leah Thomas was competing against the men. So that's my point. Is the reason why that comparison does matter is because you're not grabbing traditional.
Wait. That's also not true. Thomas did win races as. That's not true. That's not how it works. She's not placed 31st in the women's division because she can't, like when she was even placed 89th in the men's division. That's a really good number because there are more men competing than there are women in swimming, in college swimming. So like it's an impressive feat.
But
like
Leah Thomas jumps up well above where Leah Thomas was competing at simply by jumping categories to compete against the women. But
she didn't jump up. The competition is just different. She didn't jump up.
Okay, but that's my point. The competition is different.
Yes, even her competition is different. She races slower. Now that she's undergone gender affirming healthcare, she is slower. She got worse technically. Yeah. She didn't get better. She got worse.
I'm sure Leah Thomas did get worse.
No fucking
but her being worse was still good enough for her to get first place when she would have never gotten first place in that category against the men.
Wait, but you say
Okay,
that,
so
but
I
she
mean,
won. No, wait, this is why I'm saying you say that, but she won events when she won the 500 meter. She has won that event when she was swimming against men. What are you talking about? There's just more men to compete
and one
against, and it's
and
not
one
about winning.
and
Wait,
one.
I don't think you understand how this works. It's not about whether she wins the heat. The way you're placed is based off your speed. It's based off your time. Like, what do you mean, man? Come on, she can still win the heat and still have a lower time than other people.
She wait have a lower time than another women. Okay, yeah, but when Leah Thomas won first place, it wasn't based off of her time. It was based off of her beating the person next to her.
Yes, and what I'm saying is she won those races when she was competing against the men. She also won those races. So
At
you're
the
when
elite
first,
and the NCAA.
yes. How do you think do you understand how good it is to place 89th in the NCAA? There's 270 men swimming. Like, yes, it's a pretty big deal to place 89th. That's you're better than half the people. Do you think she placed better than half the people by losing events?
Okay, so Leah Thomas won first place in just okay. From my understanding, and maybe I'm, and it's not like I dove deep into Leah Thomas in particular, but from my understanding, when Leah Thomas won first place, it wasn't just first place off of a one-off race as a larger part of the season. It was like she won first
No,
place, like she won that
it was
season or whatever.
one single event. She won one single event. It was the 500-yard freestyle. It wasn't it was one single event. That's it. So everybody's sitting here going, well, Leah Thomas is this stuff. She won one event, one time, and we're still talking about her fucking 3 years later from winning one event.
I mean, okay. I mean, I guess if it is the case that in swimming, in collegiate swimming, does it just work that you just train all year and then you do one race in the entire season and then that determines who's the best?
She only competed in one NCAA event because she had to qualify based on her hormone production. They literally wouldn't let her compete when she started HRT. She started HRT in the 2019-2020 season. She had already come out as trained. She was already transitioning. They wouldn't let her compete in the women's division because she hadn't met the hormone guidelines. So after that in 2021 and 2020 or 2021-2022 season, she had met those guidelines, so they let her compete.
Okay, they let her compete and they let her compete in just one race.
She competed in 3 races. She lost 2 of them.
So in the entire season, Leah Thomas did 3 races.
She only competed.
Like, is that how it works?
She only competed in one NCAA championship. Right? She in the 2022
she only
NCAA
competed in one
division.
NCAA championship. She only competed in one championship.
Yes.
Oh, so she did not compete in any championships when she was when the world saw her as a man.
She competed in. She did actually. I just don't have. Hold on, let me pull it up. She competed in the Ivy League championship, so she competed specifically against Ivy League schools.
Gotcha. But for the women, so the difference between Ivy League schools and just the broader NCAA is that the broader NCAA is just like the best of the best.
Well, you're competing against more people.
Okay,
the
so
Ivy
like
League
the best
championships
of the best,
are just
right?
going to be Ivy League, and then the NCAA is just going to be every school. Some people you'd probably have argued that the Ivy League championships you're going to compete against more because those Ivy League schools have way more funding and recruit way more people. Some would probably argue you're going to face stiffer competition in that. But yeah, she competed in the Ivy League championship and the NCAA championship.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, so the way that I understood it is that Leah Thomas competed for a championship
Wait, I
and
just want to point
won
something out too. I
against.
just want to point out something too. When she competed in the
Yeah,
Ivy League championships as a under like the men's division, she came in second place in every one of her heats.
she got second place as what?
She got second place in every single one of her heats.
And every single one of her heats, you said?
Her heats, yes. And in fact, her time for the 500 increased by 13 seconds going from the men's division to the women's division. She got slower.
It increased?
Yeah,
Oh, it
her
decreased.
time went up. No, her time increased. Time would
Her time
increase in
increased, gotcha.
swimming. So she literally got and 13 seconds in swimming is a fucking lot of time. But it's been 45 minutes and somebody does want me to move on. So I do need to move on now. So I'm doing that. Shout out to Tyler and shout out to Monique. Or not Monique. Monique was from before. Shout out to Elizabeth. Sorry, I didn't see that until just now. I don't understand. Like, it can't be two things. If the claim is that they are doing so much better in these divisions, therefore bad, but they're not actually doing better. What is... She went from placing second place in every heat to coming in dead last in heats. So I don't understand. I don't understand what we're... I'm starving, dude. What's up, everybody? Thanks for watching this video, and I want to give a special shout out to my YouTube members. Their names are on the side. Membership starts at $2.99 a month, and you get early access to videos, exclusive members-only videos, and access to the Red Mirror Media Discord server. Thank you again to my members, and thanks for watching.